Rocky Flats was a nuclear weapons facility that produced over 70,000 triggers for the atomic bomb. As we've heard from speakers before, the area that's being considered for the Jefferson Parkway was not remediated. Only about 25% of Rocky Flats was. So that soil, the plutonium, is still there. And as one of the experts spoke earlier, it's at the surface level or perhaps just below. The soil samples that have been done consistently, every soil sample has shown that plutonium is in the soil. So to build a road, whether it's inevitable that the plutonium will get unearthed. Plutonium gets inhaled into the body, gets inhaled into the lungs. So the most common cancers are lung cancer, bone cancer, and liver cancer. Now, I lost a dear friend to liver cancer, liver being the organ that is most responsible to detoxify the body. If the liver gets contaminated, it gets cancer, the body dies. For bone cancer, I have a friend with bone cancer right now. That is extremely painful. The bones become brittle. You can reach for something and a rib will break. And with lung cancer, it's the inability to take a deep breath. So that's what we're looking at if this parkway were approved. If you think about who is at risk, the workers, and the gentleman spoke earlier, that amount of hours per day, those are workers who probably need this job and their health will suffer as a result. It is the neighbors who live around, and then it's everybody downstream. It's Denver. It's our whole population where the wind blows. Those particles will be in the air.
Is that every soil study ever done in the Indiana Street corridor has consistently found plutonium contamination at levels representing hundreds of times background radiation, and the Rocky Flats cleanup project did not remediate that soil. What is relevant is that history's leading experts on the subject have testified under oath that there is no level of plutonium exposure that is safe. What is relevant is that residents of new neighborhoods on the east side of Indiana Street are getting sick and dying from rare cancers and neurological diseases. In 5 parks, there have been 2 cases of the extremely rare heart cancer cardiac angiosarcoma, plus cases of liver cancer and brain cancer, and multiple cases of Parkinson's disease and multiple sclerosis. In Whisper Creek, 2 men in their 40s died of stomach cancer, and another man developed appendix and bladder cancer, according to a report received just 3 weeks ago. All of their doctors called their cases anomalies, and one doctor suspects Rocky Flats contamination as the cause. What is relevant is that CDPHE is not even monitoring the health of those populations in those neighborhoods, let alone investigating why this high rate of disease is occurring. My hypothesis, which is testable, is that these sick and deceased citizens inhaled airborne plutonium particles from Rocky Flats, which lodged in their bodies and caused cancers. My concern is that there will be many more such cases in Broomfield neighborhoods like Skystone and many other neighborhoods if Jefferson Parkway construction along Indiana Street resuspends contaminated dust into the air. What is relevant is whether a 4-lane tollway, which plans to use cut and fill construction techniques in undulating terrain, can be built without raising any dust into the air. This C470 example, taken about a year ago, suggests that it can't. What is relevant is what dust suppression measures CDPHE will even require for this project, not only in the refuge, but also outside the refuge, where the state's much stricter plutonium soil standard applies, as shown in this diagram. The dark pink is 50 picocuries per gram, the light pink is 2 disintegration per minute per gram, and there are certain corners of the parkway that exceed the state's standard. Honorable council members, do not let your attention be distracted. Focus on what is relevant. Focus on the hard questions. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. My name is Pat Mellon. I'm an attorney. I am a resident of Superior. My office is in downtown Denver. I'm going to remind you that you are in a unique position that many government bodies wish they had back. The position where you're going to make a decision to fund or continue funding a decision. I'm going to suggest that the government officials responsible for the Flint water crisis, The government officials responsible for the repopulation of Love Canal, where they're having the same kind of medical issues that they had 30 years ago, wish they had this moment back. And I'm going to suggest that you listen to the things that make you uncomfortable and resist the urge for confirmation bias and resist the urge for sunk cost logic where we've gone this far, we need to continue. I would also tell you that there were 5 engineers at Morton Thiokol who knew the night before that the Challenger shuttle was going to blow up. And NASA said, it'll be fine. And they refused to cancel the launch. So there are voices out there trying to talk to you about the concerns and about the data that doesn't confirm what you're hearing from the experts and the people who have a vested financial stake in this fight. I just urge you to listen beyond the things that make you feel comfortable that everything will be okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, Council. I am here tonight to ask you to please not fund the Jefferson Parkway. This project will disrupt nearby communities and is a risk to public health due to residual plutonium contamination that remains at Rocky Flats along Indiana Street. During this consideration process, you're hearing from CDPHE, who is funded by DOE. CDPHE claims it is a common practice to receive federal grants from federal government. People who have studied this issue for decades views it as a conflict of interest. The current proposal for the Jefferson Parkway will not complete the Beltway around Denver. JPPHA will likely come back to investors requesting more money down the road to complete the Beltway. This is a pit for taxpayer dollars that should be used to enhance communities, not destroy them. Not to mention, many of these said taxpayers are against the project. CDPHE claims that a person would have to inhale large amounts of plutonium contaminated dust to have significant health impacts. This is in reference to a DOE study who notoriously negates public health risks for purposes of profit and development. In reality, a single particle of plutonium can cause harm.
This is a regional public health issue that affects many communities around the Denver metro area. It is also a generational issue because there are studies about the genetic effects of plutonium, so it affects people that have yet to be born. Please see the citations under the last 2 points on the document I'm presenting to the Council. Hermann Muller awarded a Nobel Prize for his discovery that radiation exposure had genetic effects harmful to future generations. Predicted gradual reduction of the survival ability of the human species due to the effect of DNA on DNA of exposures to very low levels of radiation over several generations. Also, genetic specialist Dieter Tautz says that effects of radiation exposure on a given species of wildlife may not be readily apparent in individuals of that species until the passage of several generations. So I ask that the Council act with the precautionary principle on this issue, and please make this decision with foresight for the future generations that will be dealing with this issue for as long as the half-life of plutonium, which is 24,000 years, beyond that even, because in 24,000 years, half of it will be gone. So this is a very long-term issue, so please have the foresight to make this decision in the interest of public health. And again, thank you very much for your time tonight and hearing on this and hearing about and learning about this issue.
Thank you.
You know, it takes a lot of courage. It takes courage for us to be here, you know, to take this time. And it takes even more courage for you all, because this is a moral decision. I think it's been said very well that there are times when it's just better to stop a project when it's flawed and there is money to be saved by Broomfield. But I would say to you to look at this, the moral question of a decision. If you can prevent a single death, whether it's 1 in 100,000 or 1 in a million, But to be able to make a decision and prevent suffering, that may be the most noble thing we could ever do with our lives, is protect people, protect health. So we say to you, we know that you have the courage to do this. And now we'd like to sing that to you. We're not.
Courage, David. Courage, Eileen. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Courage, Kimberly. Courage, Devin. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Courage, Devin. Courage, Betty. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Courage, Randy. Courage, Sharon. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Courage, Mike. Courage, Elizabeth. You do not walk alone. We will walk with you